Donna.
Yeah, I can't find the script, but here we go. So good morning, and thank you for all appearing so early. It's a mixture of needs that required us to meet at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning instead of a more normal hour. And I won't go into that because it'll take up the entire time. Why don't we establish that we have a quorum first?
Kathy said we did. Got 10.
Let's see. Who else? We got 10?
Yeah.
Okay, so
We have me, Gary Beller.
okay, we've got Peter Halley,
Bill Gardner.
Steve Perlman, Kathy Baird, Peter Kahn, Gary Beller, and going down the list, Scott Ulm, Bill Gardner, Pam Swan, Patty Deuster, Donna Martino, and I think that's the whole list that I see so far. Well, good. We have a quorum. This is a regularly noticed public meeting of the Advisory Committee of non-voting taxpayers. I was about to say non-paying voters, but and it is Saturday morning, October 28th at around 8 a.m. and we're going to try to get finished as quickly as possible. Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
And second, I say second. All those in favor, just raise your hands. Anybody opposed? I can't see you all, so I see enough hands anyway. So the agenda is approved. Minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the minutes before we do that? I don't see or hear any. So we will, all those in favor signify by, raising your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I don't see any opposition. Okay. So the purpose of this meeting is twofold. Number one, to just have a last discussion about the STR articles and what, if anything, we're going to do from here forward. The town meeting is about a week away, a little over a week away, there's a lot more information out there now. I will tell you what I have done since our last meeting, which was I think I was asked to do an op-ed piece for the op-ed or letter to the editor for one of the publications, and I did that, and it was published this Thursday in the Inky, and you can read that. And basically, it reflects our strategy. I think is see that something is passed without discrimination against taxpayers, and so we got rid of the part of the STR proposed bylaw that discriminated against taxpayers, and so I think that what we're doing is supporting passage of the structure, and then how the town wants to regulate these STRs is up to them. But we think that the structure and the rules as they are fair and should be passed. And hopefully it will pass, but I have no idea whether it will. and hopefully this will just get the issue off of our radar screen for the at least
Second that.
my foreseeable future. But I don't know what's happened since then, and I think Kathy added in this piece of information. Act Now published a piece from a consulting group in Massachusetts.
You froze.
Don't believe your lying eyes. The STRs have no real positive impact on Nantucket, but it is what it is, and it's being discussed publicly. So the question is,
Peter, let me just add one thing there. Something got posted. The Current had another article. There was like the Inky had an article evaluating the study, and the Current had one yesterday. And someone sent this to me, and I don't know how you do this because it was on Instagram, and I don't know Instagram. Somebody had put a poll out. Now that you have read the article and you understand what it means and you know what the rules are, do you think that do you believe that STRs have minimal impact on the island? And it was basically 2/3, so 66% said no, I don't believe it, and the other people said yes. So I think it's interesting that it's almost a 2/3 thing, just like all the other votes. So just throwing that out.
Except we don't know. We have no idea how many people participated in that poll.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot like a lot of the polls we've seen that are sort of maybe polls in name only. No idea whether. Well, I haven't read the article, so I'm just sort of speaking off the top of my head. We don't know how.
Peter, the Inky just sent out a morning update. I don't know if anyone saw it, and they posted 2 more op-ed articles about STRs.
Yeah, that's is that the one by Jim
Sulzer and
Sulzer
Carl Jellinek. And Carl Jellinek,
they're repeats of what have been out there as well already.
Okay.
Let me just go back, Peter, if I may, just because there have been some other activity. This started since our last meeting. There was a meeting of the Civic League where they brought forward supposedly the pros and the cons on this, but it was a bit stacked.
Whoops, Peter, I think you're
3-2
connection. Sorry? You're cutting in and out, at least on my computer you are. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a meeting of the Civic League. They had a meet the candidates kind of a operation where they had 5 people discussing the STRs. It was sort of 3-2 against, and it was not only was it 3-2, but the amount of time they gave the 3 as opposed to the 2 was pretty dramatic. In any event, that was had, and then as everybody has seen, there's been a lot of the letters to the editor, and this article, this study, quote unquote, that Act Now dumped in. If you've read it, on its face, it's highly questionable. Highly questionable. Doesn't even include the tax dollars that the STRs pay to the town, which are substantial. But problem is the headlines. The headlines, and most people don't read beyond the headlines, are not helpful. And I guess I'm surprised, although I guess there's another Thursday left. So the Inky has yet to come out with their editorial position, but I expect that it will be negative, at least as to Article 2, and the Current as well, just because of their ownership, principally. So I think, personally, I think it's going down. At least I think Article 2 is going down. It needs 2/3 of a vote, but we'll see. Kathy's been much closer to the situation than I have, so this week.
Does anybody know if there was a ruling with a lawsuit?
Yeah, there was none. There was none.
Why? It was,
it
wasn't it
was-
supposed to be this
There was
week?
supposed to be, but they had, as I understand it, I looked at the docket that Kathy sent me. There was just a sort of a meeting of the lawyers, but there was actually no formal hearing held on the key issue of standing, right, Kathy? That's not going to be now until after sometime in December. I
Yeah,
think.
it was a pre-trial hearing, so they're holding a trial. There was a request for summary judgment, which was denied by the judge. So the sides have to show up for trial on between the 4th and 7th of December.
Still doesn't
And that
make
was on
sense.
the packet.
It still does not make sense because the whole issue of standing is not a triable issue necessarily, and could be held before any summary judgment issue. But in any event, we'll see. The bottom line is there has been no ruling.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think where we stand in all this now, we have the town meeting coming up. I think that this issue is well ventilated by everybody. We've said our piece, and I don't think that we can add anything by appearing at the town meeting on this issue. In other words, the sides are well represented, and I think we've done what we need to do, which is to, at least what is teed up is not non-discriminatory, and we can. I was going to say pat ourselves in the back, but if this goes on and on and on, it's just another chapter in a fight that concerns us only in as much as we are not, we meaning non-voting taxpayers, don't bear the burden of whatever the town decides in a discriminatory manner. So I just wanted to state that I'm not planning on going to the town meeting, and I just want everybody to have a chance to voice their opinion as to whether or not there's anything else we need to do at this juncture.
Peter, one thing that I failed to mention, I'd like before we start this discussion, if you have read well, first of all, I urge you to read the Act Now study. I read it, and I must say I came away. There is a very distinct, use the word odor, undercurrent. Let's put it that way, of us versus them, of a very much of a local versus non-voting taxpayer. It's very. I mean, I must say I found it kind of upsetting after all the efforts that have gone in here, so I do think. I mean, Kathy's going to be there on behalf of Nantucket Together and the short-term working group. So I think she can protect if anything comes up again, that tries to revert back to the discriminatory position. She can. And I would, obviously we would want her to articulate that. But I agree with you. Otherwise, there's really not much more we can do.
Yeah. So the other on that specific issue, to me, it raises it raises up as a threat to our position in the following way. First of all, I agree that that sort of background theme runs through the report, and it's been their background theme since day number one. As you may remember, 3 years ago, where they withdrew their proposed bylaw and replaced it with another proposed bylaw, that the difference in the two proposals was that it was clear that their approach to the local voters was basically, it doesn't affect you at all. It only affects the non-voting taxpayers. Not in those words, but in that substance. So the only way I think that issue could raise its head at this meeting is in the form of some sort of an amendment to what's on the floor. What I said in the last meeting, which I've not yet done, is I'm going to write to the moderator, Sarah Alger, basically giving her the background of the battle we sort of fought and what the issue is and why it's unconstitutional. She's a very good lawyer. I think I will copy John, the town council.
Giorgio.
Yeah, because I think that's she would find it appropriate to consult with him anyway, and he's well versed in this all now, and so it just it'll be like having a very, very hopefully short and pointed brief on an issue that may or may not arise. So that, and the point would be that an amendment in this way is A, not appropriate on the floor, and B, it would be unconstitutional to have such an amendment in the statute or bylaw. And that was it. It's something I haven't done yet. I've been occupied with these other writings, another of which I've written and I haven't sent in to anybody because I've just had second thoughts about it. And that is the
Oh, he froze.
We're waiting in anticipation.
Yeah.
We missed you got frozen there, Peter. What is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Look at luckily it was not cryogenically frozen, but I'm still here with you. I was saying I wrote another piece which not sent in regarding the Board of Health's I don't know, we call it disdain or lack of enthusiasm for the role which it has been put in. Because I think Kathy's piece did a very nice job with that, and it's at this point old news. But the notion of an agency saying we just don't want to do what we are being required to do by law is, I guess it's part of the new thing in the United States. So anyway, that's that. So I think where this stands now, I will write this piece, and what I'll do is get some advice from Peter and Bill, who were instrumental in developing this position and advocating it both in the short-term interest working group and beyond, and get that sent in hopefully sometime midweek this week. So I think we're sort of at an end, hopefully permanent end for this issue here, but I have my concerns about it. So the other thing I did want to talk about today is the town council study group, and bring you up to date on that.
Peter, before you go on, are you going to say that I could speak up? Are you going to tell Sarah?
Yes, yeah.
On the two issues you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the two issues are, I know one of them is, discrimination on non-voting taxpayers. What is the other issue that?
Well, actually, that's it. If anything comes on where I think that, as well as just the whole us versus them thing.
Yeah. Well, let me sort of broaden up a little bit, because I think that in my mind, and does the group agree? Leaving aside the merits of short-term rentals, I think the bylaw that is currently being considered provides a structure that is appropriate and needed on Nantucket to regulate short-term rentals. One might have quarrel as to what those regulations ought to actually say and how stringent they ought to be in terms of the number of rentals and all the rest of that stuff. But the structure of the bylaw itself is is an appropriate structure. And then if adopted, it would be up to the either the town council, if there is one in the future, or the annual town meeting, to tweak those regulations, or change them in any way they saw fit. But it seems to me it's just an appropriate way to look at short-term rentals, because in my view, they're part of Nantucket, and then just how big a part and who can get the rent and everything else is a fair subject for regulation. So I think that if the issue comes up, and I think this is really, I'm just restating what Brooke Moore has said at one or more of these meetings, the select board meetings, that we need a structure on the island to deal with this, and this is a good structure, and I think I agree with that, and I think that sort of the structure issue ought to be something that we support. Good government. But so Kathy, and if anybody else has an opinion on this, that just chime in.
I have an opinion, Peter.
Yeah.
So let me just say this. I agree with what you said, what should happen with respect to the advisory committee for non-voting taxpayers. That is to say that we should not be taking a position anymore on this, because the thing we are most concerned about, we have been victorious with, and it's completely out of the proposals. And therefore, there's really an issue that a lot of people think between, the short-term rental group and the people that don't want it. But we're not part of that battle. That's between Act Now and Nantucket Together. And unless there is a specific proposal that provides suddenly for discrimination against us, I don't think anyone should be speaking on behalf of the advisory committee for non-voting taxpayers. So my question is, if Kathy is going to speak, I want to make sure that she's speaking not on behalf of us at all, unless this contingency occurs. She is speaking for Nantucket Together. She does so beautifully, but that ain't us. And I don't want there to be confusion about that. I don't want the town to say, oh, it's the outsiders and the insiders. That's my concern here. So to the extent that Kathy is going to speak, is that because the moderator has given her position, her permission to speak on behalf of Nantucket Together? Because what she's going to say is not what is our concern and our issue.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of Nantucket Together if I speak there and not part of advisory committee. It would be for the short-term rental work group. In any case,
I have a problem then. I have a problem then, because I agree with what Peter said, is that we want to say nothing more on this subject unless there's a change in the proposal that ends up in discriminating against us.
I would be happy to have a script that Peter gives me to read. If I speak on behalf of the advisory committee, I would be happy to just read that script.
Well, Gary, thank you. I think we're on the same sheet of music with perhaps, but we're in a different a different register or something like that. Because what I actually said was two things, and it was probably the two things that Kathy was not able to articulate before, only one of which was the discrimination. The other was the structure, that Nantucket needs a bylaw in this area, and that this is a good bylaw, irrespective of what's actually in the details of Article 1. And I'm really talking about Article 1. And of course, Article 1 has no real meaning unless Article 2 is passed, I think, but I'm not sure about that. So I would think that there are two things here. One is discrimination, and one is in general, that
Peter, that's none of our business. That is
Yeah,
not
okay.
our business. It's a nice thing to have set of regulations, but that, if we start talking about that, suddenly people say, oh, they're on that side. And hopefully we don't get into that position by talking about the fact that it's nice to have good regulations. I just don't think that's a good strategy.
Peter, if I may.
yeah,
I think it would be cleaner, and I think, you know, and less murky, so to speak, if we make it very, very simple, that Kathy is authorized to speak solely to the issue of whether or not there is any discrimination, you know, if it's brought back to the floor. Otherwise, I tend to agree with Gary. It's a slippery slope. It starts to get wishy-washy on which side we are here, and it's not going to make a hell of a beans difference. So I think the only issue we should make, you know, just, and I think once I think John Giorgio is with us on this. I'm quite sure Sarah Alger will be. You need to confirm that it'll be done, and there won't be any need to have her talk.
okay. Is there anybody else who has a view on this? So I think what Peter just said with Gary's information is fine with me, and I will write either two separate things or one thing incorporating both, and there's probably going to be one thing incorporating both. You know, number one is that the no discrimination issue, and two, that Kathy is our authorized speaker on that subject. And Kathy, are you willing to be that speaker? Otherwise, I will get on a plane and fly up there.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, I know.
I'll
It gets
be,
lonely up there.
yeah, I'm willing to speak, and just on that topic, if it comes up.
Okay. Any other, you know, comment, positive or negative on this?
I have a general comment which relates not to what we're talking about, but something that you said before about the Board of Health thing, and Kathy wrote on it. Well, I want you to know this is just out of the blue. It's so early in the morning, I figured I'll pontificate a little bit. I am so outraged with the comments from some of the town officials, like Roberto and like the head of licensing on the taxi thing. No one wants to do their job anymore. They've decided that, well, we're not going to do it anymore. You know, I keep screaming a writ of mandamus. In my legal days, I would sue every one of these town officials, say, this is a writ of mandamus. We're suing you to make sure you just do your duty. When the Board of Health says he's not going to enforce the laws, and when the head of licensing says it's okay for the taxi drivers to do that because people need the money, I just want to file a writ of mandamus and say, get these people out of their jobs. If they're not positive about doing their jobs, get them out of there. Anyway, that's just my pontificating. Thank you. It's early in the morning.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I wrote is sort of a indirect and more polite way of saying what you said, because they're going to stay in those jobs for the foreseeable future.
But they don't belong there.
Yeah, and I mean, this is particularly jaw-dropping because they have been given it's sort of the opposite of what happens. Usually, if you have an empire, you want to build it bigger, right? And they're being given that opportunity to expand their power and reach, and a way to finance the expansion. And they want no part of it. And so that tells us that there's really something else at issue here, which is this. I think it's kind of the us versus them type of stuff in the background, which is too bad. But anyway, I think it would be great if we come to whatever our next meeting is and don't have to discuss this anymore. Because it's even somewhat fractious within our own group. So we'll hopefully bid it a farewell, but I don't think that's going to happen. So town council study committee. Don and I had a meeting last week to discuss this. So what's happened since our last meeting is the select board established the town council study committee without us. And Kathy was at the meeting that happened. And she was able to keep a slight ember burning. And then I wrote, after discussing this with Kathy, I wrote to the select board, basically getting on my knees and say, you know, we really should have a voice in this and blah, blah, blah. And they took it up again at their meeting, what, a week ago or 10 days ago, and approved a non-voting seat for us. But Donna sent me an email yesterday saying she's not yet gotten her appointment, and you know, and Donna's going to be. And I think as I'm looking at this, it's because not only do we get a seat, we got a seat and an alternate, and I promised to send them an alternate name and didn't. So as my wife says, everything lands back pointing at me. The finger is pointing at me. So what I was hoping to do today is two things. One, just briefly discuss who that alternate may be. And quite frankly, I've asked Gary whether he would be willing to be the alternate, because this town council business has really been a baby of his since I've been on the committee. And it's what I would call, you know, better governance move. Or who else is interested? Because Gary, I'd say, was sort of reluctant, but willing. Is that right?
Yes, I'm reluctant. If somebody else is interested, that'll be great. I got two committees already. Is fine for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I mean, I'd love Gary to be on, but I do think it's time. I mean, I do think it's important that we continue to develop the committee and bring, you know, we've gotten now a bunch of new people, you know, and we need to continue to sort of develop some leadership here. So I would urge one of our newer people to step forward and take this on with Donna.
Okay, so let me. Why don't we circle back to this, because I want whoever hopefully will consider to do this to have an understanding of what our aims and goals are, rather than just have this as a formless. There's a committee, and we'd like you to be an alternate on it. And by the way, being an alternate means we'll make assumption number one is that they will have hybrid meetings like this one, so that one can participate, but that's not assured. And so anybody who agrees does not necessarily have to commit to travel up and down. Rather, we'll just stamp our feet and try to get virtual meetings, which I tried to get already, but so far no good response to that. So by committing, you're not committing to spending the winter on Nantucket. You're just committing to be available if we actually have a way to communicate with this committee. Two, you know, what is it? What are our goals? And I've spent a fair amount of time thinking about this, and I've discussed it with Donna, and I thought, because this town council study commission, I think they're going to try to tee this up for the next town meeting, and that means it's going to go very, very rapidly. You know, it may not be possible, because it may be like the short-term working group where the town gets involved, insists on hiring a moderator, and that takes so long that you know, you're into the following year. But I think Curtis Barnes wants to drive this thing, you know, very, very rapidly. And in fact, it really shouldn't be that complicated, because if you want a town council, there are lots of bylaws out there already in existence that you look through and you say, okay, which one fits us the best? And and then how do we have to tweak it to really make it a Nantucket bylaw rather than a Barnstable bylaw, wherever the bylaw comes from. Because a town council form of government is not an unknown form of government. It's a normal form of government for a town the size of Nantucket. So if you take those sort of as the starting assumptions, and I don't know if anybody else has a different view of what a town council study committee would do other than come up with a bylaw to create a town council. What are our interests, and what suggestions might we have for such a committee? And I think that our interests, and sort of this is the crucial part of this discussion. I think our interest is to be in at least the same position we are today under the bylaws of Nantucket, where we are under the bylaws an official committee of the select board designed to provide advice with 15 members and so on and so forth. I think one could just take the language of the current bylaws for our committee and make sure that that language is in whatever bylaw is proposed for the town council study commission. So that's sort of number one, and that's what I'd call the minimum case. What I would then like to see is if we can expand our role very, very slightly. The model I'm looking at, having lived in Washington, D.C., I've become familiar with what they call the neighborhood advisory commissions. And they are like mini town councils all over the city, which are geographic in nature. And they get to meet on issues of concern to their neighborhoods. And that's basically what we have here, issues of concern for non-voting taxpayers. And the only difference between the two is they're elected in DC. Here we're appointed in Nantucket, and I think the appointment route is the only reasonable route to continue. But when an advisory committee, a neighborhood advisory committee in DC looks at something and considers it and then actually has some advice for the city, that advice is entitled to presumption of validity. And so the city, and it could be either the town council of the city, Washington has a town council, or it could be one of the departments of the city. It could be the transportation department, has to actually read the advice, and they don't have to follow it. But if they don't follow the advice, they at least have to explain the reason that they have not. And that little tweak would, if we were ever able to get that, would make what we do on these Saturdays perhaps have a little bit better impact, because so much of what we do, we just do it and it falls by the wayside and nobody really listens to it. So that's sort of my thought, and I've written this up, but I didn't want to set anything in stone until I had an idea of the consensus, and then our representatives on this committee, at least have an outline of what it is that we want to contribute to the work of this committee. So I hope that's understandable, because it's fairly simple, but also fairly complicated at the same time. So I'm soliciting people's views on, because I've heard everything. Well, non-voting taxpayers ought to have a vote, which would be at one end our committee ought to disappear, which would be at the other end of the spectrum. And the Nantucket Constitution does not permit non-residents to vote in the state on anything. So I think one is sort of a dead on arrival proposition, and the other is
Frozen again.
you will think.
You were frozen for a moment.
Very last.
Oh, I think it was my dramatic conclusion was missed by all.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of typical. So I'm not sure exactly when I went into the freezer, but what I was saying is what I'm looking to do is solicit your views so that we can appropriately instruct our representatives to this committee as to what our real goal is, rather than just being on the committee and reacting to things. Because I think we can have we have a limited positive goal, and then there are other things like how many town councilors ought there to be and things like that we can opine on. But that's a little bit more complicated than today. Yeah, Donna.
Yeah, I was going to say, during the meeting, I was encouraged because when you were asking, could we have a vote? Could we be there? Have a seat at the table? It was unanimously approved that we would participate somehow. So I think that's a good beginning because that was crucial. I agree with you there. I guess Peter Kahn had.
Well, I must say, I didn't see it as a great victory for us. I mean, the fact is that, anybody can be a non-voting consultant on this. It's going to be open to the public. The fact that they did not give us a vote, I thought was telling. That said, it seems to me, I guess I would be careful at this point not to lock us into a position too early. I think our position as a group should generally be that we want more, as much, I should put it this way, as much input as possible within the confines of the law. And obviously, Donna and whoever else is the alternate will be reporting back on a regular basis, and we'll see how this develops, and we'll be able to have specific input as we go along. But I would be a little careful to be not necessarily to lock us into a particular mandate.
Anybody else?
I'm encouraged by the whole thing, actually. I think this is brand new for us. As we begin to work with the group, and as Peter and I discussed, developing trust and providing knowledge and input, we can grow our position. It's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah. Also, the Peter's voting versus non-voting. My understanding of why this is non-voting is they do welcome our input, but B, they wanted an odd number of people on the committee, and I think they have 7 or 9 right now, and we would have been an even number, and that was not acceptable to the way they wanted to approach this. And they could have been appointed to, but whatever. I think they've got the group they want on there, and so they're happy to have more voices.
That's the point.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. So any other
And also, can I just add one last thing? I'm sorry. I must say, having talked to Cliff Barnes a little bit, how should I put this? He's got his own view, and he's pretty well set in it. And he doesn't. I'm not sure how much he wants our involvement, to be perfectly frank with you. So I think you're going to need to be alert to that as you work with him. He doesn't like. He knows what he wants. He's been through this drill. He doesn't like a lot of controversy, conversation, what have you. So I think it's going to be pretty rapid fire from his perspective.
Yeah.
I just, Peter, I agree with your assessment. Curtis knows what he wants and he wants to get it. However, there are a number of other people on the commission or on the study. So I think that could be a leveling force.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that also, because I totally agree with you. He is very, very focused. And two of the other people on the committee, because I think both Roberto and I'm just blanking right now, but the Concom director.
Dixon, is it Dixon?
Yeah, they put in.
Tom Dixon.
And Tom Dixon. So that, and Tom is very thoughtful. They're all thoughtful people.
Yeah.
But
Donna, do you get the feeling that it's a hard sell to get this through approval by the town people? I mean, does your group perceive this as a tough sell?
No, I don't.
yeah, I think we will survive. The question is, can we pick up a little bit more than we currently have?
No, I'm talking about getting the town government changed.
Oh, yeah. That's a really great question, Patty, because but we've kind of gone from this town government study committee from what, 3 years ago, which came up with no conclusions, to a town council study committee. And so I think the answer is, it is likely to be a change, but the question is, are they going to have just a straight, the real question is going to be the representation issue. And by that, I mean, right now you get to go and have a direct vote at town meeting. Town council is an indirect vote. And so who will all of the, how many town councilors will there be? Right now, there are 5 select board members. And I think in my brain of brains, it says the way this is going to get passed is the select board is to become town council. And that's the least amount of change, really. And so should there be 5? Should there be more than 5? And then how do you vote for your town councilors? Is it going to be a regional vote? Is it going to be everybody's going to be at large? Meaning, each one, you select the top, 5 or 7 vote getters, depending on the number of people who are running. Those are the questions I really don't have an opinion on what to do and how to do it, because typically what you would want is, one person, one vote type of situation. And so if you want to divide up the island, everybody, all the voters, live in very compact area, really. And and so how do you draw the district lines? They could not be drawn really based on, traditional neighborhood lines.
Although I would think that this would be a great opportunity to promote the whole civic. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Coming through loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would think that the civics is already divided the neighborhoods, and this would really be a good way to instill some, if you will, not power, but some relevance to these civic groups. And it does keep it a neighborhood thing, but it's established, and it would be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think that the problem is, looking at, for example, at Monomoy, is how many year-round residents do you have in Monomoy who actually can vote? And so if you want a one person, one vote representation type of situation, it's very difficult given the established neighborhoods, because this is an upside down entity. Upside down meaning you've got most of the homeowners are not residents and therefore not voters.
But that's where it comes in, that it would be so important that we push the idea, because this is a way of voting but not voting. You can still, where the decisions come are at the neighborhood civic meetings and the general consensus, so that it will bring down the issue to the people that live on the island. I mean, Sconset, Matticat, that's all 80% island people. But if you're in a civic meeting, you can still talk and maybe change the mind or a vote of the person who's actually voting. So that it's the ground level discussions that I think give the most power, even if we don't have a voice. So I think it's important that from our standpoint, that's a way of getting our voice heard.
Yeah. So that is basically Curtis Barnes' point, which is that everybody gets a voice. No, not everybody gets a vote.
Right.
Everybody gets a voice.
Right.
And right now, you know, at the town meeting, only voters can speak at the town meeting, with the exception of the chair of our committee. And then another statute was passed, or amendment was passed recently, and I don't know whether it's been approved or not, but I think it has been approved, and giving the moderator the ability to let others speak, but it's based on, you know, her reasoned decision as to whether they ought to speak. So right now, from one point of view, nobody has a voice except voters, with a very, very limited exception. In a town council type of thing, anybody can vote. They can fly in from, rather talk to the town council and try to persuade them. And so what we typically see in town councils, that neighborhood commissions, everything else, they appear and say, I'm speaking for this neighborhood, I'm speaking for that neighborhood. And that would be perfectly acceptable to do. But to create districts with no voting population would be turning one person, one vote on its head, and would be going to a non-representative system. And so I don't think that has a chance of happening.
Peter, I have some comments. It's okay if I speak? You're frozen for a moment. Can anybody hear me?
I'll give you, go ahead, Gary.
We can hear you.
All right. So just some of my thoughts. I think that there are two issues that have caused this to be raised as a subject for the voters. But to me, there's only one that really is going to be successful. The two issues are, one, the timing of legislative actions. The people in town, you know, whether it's Jeff Carlson or the fire department, they're all very upset that the fact is we have this ridiculous system of annual town meeting with one meeting a year to pass all the legislation, and half of the stuff that needs to get done doesn't get done because to have a second meeting is very rare. I mean, having the special town meeting now is only because of this craziness about short-term renting. Otherwise, we have one meeting a year to do all of the zoning, all of the financing, all of the approvals, and it's really ridiculous, and the town misses a lot of opportunities. That's a big issue, and that's what a lot of the people in town who have supported this want to change. With the town council, they can meet every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, and get what's done and pass. And they are the legislature, instead of having to wait for once a year to get everything done. The second issue is the one we're interested in, and I don't think anybody else is, and that is to get greater representation. When I attended the town government study committee meetings as an outsider, you know, we talked about the fact that 2/3 of the population, 3/4 of the population of Nantucket are disenfranchised. They can't vote because they can't spend 8 hours at a meeting, and therefore they get no voice. And so when people talk about town council, they said, well, maybe I'll have a greater voice. I don't think it's going to change anything. You'll have 7 people or 9 people making the decisions. And if we're lucky, we'll get the same right to be the advisory voice to the town council. That's about all we're going to get. It was very clear from what Brooke Moore said at the meeting last week. She said, under no circumstances does she think that the non-voting taxpayers ought to have a vote. And I don't think most of the locals who are voting on this, would differ with her at all. So those are the 2 issues. One is to have greater representation. I was a big fan of one of the theories that was being talked about during the Town Government Study Committee meeting, which was the representative form of government, which a few municipalities in the state have, where they take each section and we would end up with 100 or 200 representatives who would be our legislature and would meet a few times a year. And in theory, they would represent the people the way Linda's talking about, whether it's in different associations or different communities. But no one seems to be very interested in that. And that the representative form of government is not the one that they're talking about. I mean, I think Curtis mentioned, or it came up at one of those sessions with the select board, that maybe this committee, the Town Government Study Committee now might think about other forms of government, but that's really not what they were talking about. They're talking about a town council, which is basically 7 individuals or 9 something, who would be able to meet every few weeks and get decisions done on a timely manner. And to the extent, as I said, my own personal view is the best we can do is to make sure that we are seen as an advisory committee to the new legislative body.
Okay. So, Donna, yeah.
I just think it's very important that we got a seat at the table. We have an opportunity to influence. I'm taking this very positively. We go forward, and it could be levels of representation, Gary, as well. It's not set in stone yet. There may be local representatives, and then they go to somebody else, and then it goes to council. The important thing is that we have a voice, we have an opportunity to influence. And we're just going to be part of the process right now. We don't know how this is going to work out. Hopefully there'll be some change.
Pam, you had a
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a mix of feelings, and I'm going to flash back to something Patty said. I know that there are communities and like Monomoy, like Sconset, where there aren't a significant maybe population of year-round people, but I think that any town council format that brings in voices from a greater perspective of the island is going to be very helpful versus walking into a Board of Selectmen meeting where maybe there's 2 or 3 selectmen that have shown up, or they're all there, but they all have to recuse themselves because of various conflicts of interest. I mean, I would love to see us, if anything, it is, Donna, I agree, it's opening a door for some discussion. And if there was representation from various parts of the island, however it was structured, we as non-voting taxpayers will be feeding into that voice on the more, local level as it filters up. I'm not sure what that final structure would look like. I also, looking at the goals of this group, it's not just about changing town government. It's about adding some different committees and different structures. So I think it is an interesting first step. And Donna, I'm glad you're going into it optimistically.
good. Anybody else have some views that we should be thinking up front about so that it's kind of like a cone or something. We boil them down to whatever we actually need to have done. I don't see anybody else. So having
Kathy's up.
Kathy.
Kathy, yeah.
Yep, just quickly, and I think this is a complete pipe dream, and I don't know if it's permitted in state law or anything like that. You know, if we're gonna try and have some influence or have some ideas, maybe throw out some outrageous thoughts just to make the parameters bigger so that when it gets narrowed down, it's closer to what we want. I mean, is it crazy to say it would be great to have a non-voting representative on the town council?
I think we
It's a
should.
good idea,
I
Okay,
mean,
we
they would
talked
just
about-
like, that sounds crazy, but I don't know why we wouldn't say that.
not crazy.
Okay,
I think I personally think it's crazy.
I don't.
And I know, and that's why I've been trying to get a little bit more active in this, because I think those kinds of suggestions, while everybody might harbor that view that they are going to end up being, we're not going to have credibility going there. And so if we want to have a voice, we're going to need to figure out, you know, where I started. What is the minimum that we're looking for? And then how do you build up from there, and how do you get that? Because if you start out really throwing bombs, and since we have no vote, we're going to end up with no voice either, because people are going to say, well, this is just ridiculous. You're not trying to be helpful. You're just trying to blow this thing up. So I'm very concerned about reaching for the sky, because I don't think it's a realistic reach. Number one. Number two, we have a lot of non-voting taxpayers who actually want to commit that kind of time and effort to perhaps. Right now, the select board meets weekly, and they might continue to meet weekly. It's an enormous amount of work to be on a town council or on a select board.
Frozen.
I would just endorse what Peter's saying, and I also guess I have a somewhat more cynical view altogether of this. I think the powers that be of Nantucket and they exist, as we know, are going to be they're going to be watching this very closely and sort of and moving this in a direction to make sure they're not losing the power that they have. So I think we just need to keep our options open. As we said, we sort of know where we want to be. We want to be heard. But I would be, I just would not go further than that at this point, and just sort of see how it develops, and then we can respond to each specific thing. But I think I'd be interested in who else wants to serve here. I think it's important because I think this is going to take a lot of time.
So having, I think we're sort of at the end of this discussion, and so let's circle back now to where we started. I need to give a name of an alternate so that we can actually finish this appointment process. Who is there? Somebody else? Is there somebody who is interested in participating as alternate to the town council study committee?
And I agree, it shouldn't be me. It should be somebody else.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I'm not going to go to the meetings, but not
Right.
at the
Yeah, we're all we can all be heard, obviously. Yeah.
You know,
who's not in the meeting night right now? We can nominate them. Whoever didn't show up today.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not hearing any.
I'll do it as an
I
alternate.
volunteer.
Would you? Great.
What about
Thanks, Kathy.
Scott? Is Scott still on the line?
I'm here. I have a lot of commitments, and I'm just worried that that taking another hour or two out of the week, to be an alternate here, I certainly will be an attentive participant in the discussion, because I am interested in it. I'm just not sure that that adding that commitment is one that makes a whole lot of sense for me at this particular judgment.
if I might say, Kathy, do you think you have the time to be an alternate on this study group?
I'll probably be attending the meetings anyway, if I can. So, and I know that I'm probably a bad choice.
No, I think you're a
Well,
good choice.
how about something new? How about something different? How about Ralph? Ralph, do you have time to do this? Any interest?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was asking if Ralph had any time or interest.
The short, it's complicated. The short answer is no, but I think before someone volunteers, you ought to be very clear about the nature of the commitment in hours and what is the time horizon? Because I've heard two messages today. It could be years because it's been, the previous version of this was years ago. And look, the short-term rental group had a lifetime of 2.5 years. So is this a commitment to 6 months because Barnes is interested in being speedy, or is it a commitment of 6 years? Where's
We don't know,
knows?
Ralph. We
Yeah.
don't know yet. So it
So
could be.
Donna, what
either.
is the
I know you
structure?
don't
Like, how
know.
often are you meeting?
I know you don't know, but could you prognosticate?
I can give you, because I happen to have a crystal ball with me. I can give you my crystal ball answer. I think the initial effort will be to go as fast as possible, and that it will probably take instead of 6 months, we're talking probably a year to 18 months. But if they can't come up with something in a year in other words, the 2025 town meeting, they're not going to come up with anything ever.
I agree. I agree.
And I guess the other thing that we have not seen is, Peter talks about the powers that be. I'm not sort of in tune with what everybody is actually thinking about, because it's going to be the form of this, how many members and how are they elected. Rather, the substance can be pretty simple. They're going to be the government. It's the form that is going to be the hard sell, or the hard thing for everybody to agree on. And I don't know how much time that will take, and we haven't really, at least I haven't seen the sides take shape and even know what those sides are.
Well, the other scary thing, Peter, is the list of characters on the committee are some pretty strong personalities with some pretty firm opinions on things already.
Yeah. And another thing, and this is something that I think one of our past members warned about, is you don't want a government controlled by the government, so to speak. In other words, a lot of the players, Pam, are inside the government already, and some of them are doing what Peter was mentioning earlier, which is not wanting to do the jobs they've been assigned. and so I think that's another big issue on a small island where a very high percentage of the electorate actually is involved in government. So it's a lot of real delicate problems, which I think is not particularly shifting the form of government, although it may prevent a shift of form of government. It's more of who is going to be the governing, rather than.
Would you be interested in it? You have your eyes wide open, Pam.
Me? I actually am interested in it. I know a lot of the characters on the committee. Probably the one I know the best is the chair.
Oh.
That's good.
On the timing thing, just to throw it out there, I'm pretty sure that the goal of this particular formation of the group is to get something get a charter, get a structure that can be in the warrant for the spring, which means that it has to be by January to get the article in, and then people can vote on it. So, and then after that, I'm sure it'll take on another life, but I think there's an immediate goal and then something after that. So
I just don't see it possible based on just just the people are going to be talking. I mean, there's no way this committee, I don't think, is going to be able to do anything by the end of February to get it on the agenda.
Yeah.
But if Pam's got her eyes wide open about who she's dealing with, she might be a
Oh, yeah,
good.
that'd be great. Sure.
That'd be great. Yep.
Yeah.
Pam,
No,
that
I'd be
would
willing
be
to do it.
terrific.
As
if
an
you would
alternate,
like
that would be
to.
fine. Yeah, thank you.
Good.
I would do it. Yeah.
So
Great.
are we all in agreement then?
Yes.
That Pam will be our alternate and to Donna.
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
and Donna, we'll set up a time to
Yeah,
talk so we can
sounds
get up to
great.
speed.
So-
Good.
I look
but
forward to
Gary-
working with you, Pam. Thank you.
Gary, you are off the hook.
He's
great, thank
smiling.
But we expect to hear your voice anyway. Okay, that's great. So Pam, would you, could you just send me sort of the normal background things? Do you have a copy of what you sent to the town manager to, it's like the.
I will look. I'm sure I probably do. Yeah.
Yeah, we can find that, and I can come up with the name, and then I'm sure that you want just for the regular, regular process to have the committee application filled out.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Well, I thank you very much. This is I'm really very, very happy about this discussion because there a lot of good views. It looks like we're all going in the same direction. We're just maybe following different routes to try to get there. And hopefully we'll come up with something positive that's helpful to them and gets us to where we think we need to be.
Great.
Good. So that basically it covers the agenda that I have in my brain, and I think it's on paper. So I guess the question is, when should we meet next? It will be after the annual town meeting or the special town meeting. How often do we need to meet during? I guess some of that will be dictated by what's happening with this town council study committee, to the extent that we need some advice and consent on that. But we'd be looking, this is really supposed to have been the, I guess, early November meeting. So are we talking about December or January or what?
Maybe probably December, just to have a check-in. I mean, if there's any, we could have a town meeting for December if there's anything on the agenda, if there's anything we need to deal with, just to have a marker.
The citizens articles will all go in on the 13th, so they'll be published for spring. So we'll get to see what articles are submitted for the spring town meeting. So I think we said earlier, like every first Saturday of the month.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
December 2nd.
So I don't have let me just bring up a calendar here.
December 2nd.
Is the 2nd? Is that stroll weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I may actually be up there, but flying back to Washington on that Saturday. But I can just tell the plane when I want to go.
Can I also ask, I'm really concerned about the zoning thing, and the person I talked to said that they were given their charter, whatever that means, their scope. And I was wondering if we could put a request in for a speaker representing zoning to just fill us in on where they're headed or what their mandate is for their 10-year review or whatever this is.
But is this something you want to take on as a, because I'm not sure that I'm understanding, at the outset, what the zoning issue is currently. I know we do a lot of spot zoning at all these town meetings.
We do a
That's
lot.
not supposed to really happen.
Right.
Yeah. And
I think there's more going on underneath than we know, and I just thought if we are looking for a speaker, it would be really nice to find out where they're situated and where they're going.
you have somebody in mind?
Yes, the Kathy, who's the lady in charge of zoning? I don't have it in mind.
You mean the planning, like Leslie Snell?
No,
Dave
No?
Iverson is chairman of the planning board.
yeah, okay, I'll look into it.
I don't think there's somebody, I don't think there's a title that goes with zoning. I know that the planning board and the planning PLUS, which Leslie Snell leads up as a town employee, they deal with zoning issues and only zoning, but I don't know who else. Those two names are the only ones I know.
Okay, I will look into it and send Peter a note.
Okay, and if there's something written, you say there's a 10-year review or something, if there's something written about establishing a 10-year review or something like that, if you could send that.
Okay.
What about Chief Pittman?
Chief Pittman is about to be not Chief Pittman,
No longer
Yeah.
chief.
but I can certainly ask him, but
And the new lady has been,
Approved.
Approved officially.
she has been approved. Yeah, but we're probably not going to want to hear from her until she.
No.
Yeah. And so one of my hesitancies on Chief Pittman, I did invite him, and he was busy because he was going to Annapolis for the weekend that weekend. But he said he'd do it another time. And I understand he's a very, very good presenter. Is exactly what is it that we want to know from Chief Pittman? Is it just a state of the state of crime in Nantucket, or state of the police department, or all the above, or something else?
You know, I'd suggest that having been the chief for decades, right? That he may well have a point of view on where there's some low-hanging fruit on the quality of life issues that we deal with. Maybe also his thought of the most intractable issues that are out there, that, maybe are hardest to deal with, but are the most important. Sort of both ends of the perspective of the spectrum there. And I think his views, I think, would be quite interesting of, what might we actually be able to do something about, and what do we really need to think about, that's really hard to do something about.
Okay, I've got that down. I had sort of thought of it in terms of if you were the departing president of the United States, what is the note that you would want to leave for your successor in the top drawer of the Resolute desk?
Yeah.
But I didn't put it to him that way because it was not clear that he was leaving at that point. Yeah.
Is it Eisenhower's beware of the military industrial complex speech? But doesn't his term end on November 30th? So he would be gone from office.
Yeah, but it's a virtual. I don't know what his future plans are, whether he's staying on the island or moving, but
He is staying. He's staying.
so I think that I think he will probably willing to speak, but he's going to be reluctant to do anything that would look like interference with the new chief. So it'll be, it could almost be, what are your 10 best hits or something like that.
I think Scott's got it right, though. I mean, if he's willing to sort of look back upon his service and what he sees, the successes, what he sees are the still pending issues, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. I guess Patty and I communicated with him about traffic in downtown earlier this summer, and I have a feeling I know what he's going to talk about, the quality of life issue, which is people are just less well behaved than they used to be. And it's unfortunate. But anyway, I will ask him. I've been sort of dragging my feet on re-asking him. So I guess there are two issues that need to be on the agenda, or three issues that need to be on agenda for December. And one is sort of any update on the town council situation. And we'll have a speaker, and hopefully it'll be the chief. Zoning, this just to at least get some clarity for us all on what is the zoning issue, and what is the timeline, and start to develop what if anything should we be thinking about with respect to zoning, and then maybe after action on STR, but everybody's going to know what happened at the annual town meeting. Is there anything else that should be on that agenda? Okay, good. So we're aiming for December 2nd, Saturday, December 2nd. I guess the regular time, 10 or 2, or do people like this earlier time?
No,
Regular time.
no,
Regular time? Okay.
regular time.
10 is good.
Okay, so we'll be assured that everybody will show up having brushed their teeth. And we can go from there. Great. Anything else for the good of the order here?
Motion to adjourn I think would be in order.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. Any second?
Second.
Second?
All those in favor, raise
Aye.
right hand.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks,
Right.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.